Welcome to the Wasteland. Now, Fallout 3 was a special game for me growing up. It was my first proper, true, open-world RPG. And I remember actually coming home on the school bus back in the day. And one of my friends was holding this crazy giant book. And he's not the reading type, so I was wondering what the hell is this? Are you studying for some kind of exam? And it turned out it was the official guidebook for Fallout 3. And it was the first time I've ever seen a world so graphic, so adult, so dark, yet so captivating, and in a strange way kind of beautiful and exciting. And it just got me completely hooked straight away. And I remember going home trying to convince my parents that no, this is not a violent game, when in fact it was one of the most bloodiest games I've ever played. But it was my first true RPG and my proper first open world game. This was, when I was a teenager, so I don't know, like 15 or 16. So now, a decade later, why this game still sticks with me, why so many people still care so much about the Fallout franchise, I think today I want to answer those questions as we take a look back at Fallout 3 and find out, is Fallout 3 still worth playing in 2026 and beyond? Now, there's a reason why I want to discuss Fallout 3 today, and that's just because the new TV show that's coming out of the second season of Fallout, it is set in New Vegas, but I honestly think that the show itself reflects the themes of Fallout 3 the most, especially with Lucy's journey coming out of the vault, looking for her dad. These are all the classic setup tropes that the first Fallout 3 game had of Bethesda. And today I just want to have a look back at that game and find out why it's still a great game in my opinion. I also want to draw some parallels as to how this game is about self-actualization and forming your identity. And it certainly has helped me form my identity, and I think many of you feel the same way. These games are more than just games. They have helped us, and they've always been there for us through lots of change. I mean, so much of my life has changed, and I can kind of relate to some of the themes that the Vault Dweller goes through, leaving the Vault, leaving your little homeland and discovering there's a much bigger world out there. Most people I grew up with when I was younger are still here, living, let's just be honest, quite simple lives. Not to diminish what they're doing, starting families and just living their lives, going to work and all that kind of stuff. But for me, I was always looking for something greater. And since then, I've set up a whole life in a foreign country. I live in Japan. I met my partner. I focused on myself and trying to build myself up, studying philosophy, creating my new philosophy, building up my music platform, and all of this stuff. And I'm not saying this to toot my own horn, but the point is Fallout 3 deals with those themes of, finding out who you are, identity, wrestling with morality. And it does such a perfect job, that opening, beginning of the Vault. I love it. Vault 101 is such a special place for me because it encapsulates perfectly that, feeling of growing up, that nostalgia, that safety that you feel in your home, and ignorance. The Vault Dweller is ignorant of the world around them, and the lies that have been told to him or her has just become second nature. You don't even question your own reality when you're living inside the vault. And then when you step out, that amazing step out moment, that forever is like one of the best moments in gaming history, if you ask me. So it has a lot of themes of discovery. So let's find out with the Fallout TV show Season 2 why I think you should return to Fallout 3 instead of New Vegas in some ways. I mean, by all means play both of them. But I just want to find out, is Fallout 3 still worth it in 2026? So in Fallout 3, you have different factions, just like you do in any of the Fallout games. You have the Enclave, you have towns like Megaton, Tenpenny Tower, You have the Brotherhood of Steel, and honestly, going back and playing this game now, having more context about the Fallout franchise, it's interesting because a lot of people weren't happy with what Bethesda did with the Brotherhood in that game, but it makes sense actually that they were just kind of a splinter group, and they were actually almost viewed as the good guys in that game. And without much knowledge of the previous Fallout games when I first played it, I didn't even realize that usually they were just hell-bent on collecting technology and, were basically giant hypocrites to some degree. Seeing the differences between the Outcasts and the Brotherhood of Steel and their core faction and everything like that. And I wish Bethesda did something better back then. They made a whole questline for the Outcasts, but they were just kind of forgotten. And the Brotherhood of Steel, you were basically almost forced to side with them in some ways. And it didn't give you many options as an RPG. I will still say that about Fallout 3. It wasn't great for an RPG game with options. It did give you a lot of role-playing with, individual quest lines and stuff like that, which I really enjoyed, like finding a whole underground layer of, blood-sucking vampires that were just crazy people. Stuff like this. The tunnel system, the metro system in Fallout is absolutely brilliant, the way it connects the map, and it has a very haunting atmosphere. But whereas something like Fallout New Vegas deals with the giant groups of the Mojave Wasteland, Fallout 3 is much more about, like I said, that quest for identity and the individual characters that you come across, not so much a wider faction, but more little pockets. And I think the storytelling, the environmental design still is the best in Fallout 3. The atmosphere, the music, the ambience of it all is so dark and beautifully disturbing, I would say, that no other Fallout game comes close. That's what Bethesda did so well, and that's what they've kind of lost recently with their new games, that sense of discovery and that sense of presence that, now you don't really get. Now their games just feel like video games. There's many standout moments with Fallout 3. Just discovering where your dad is kind of taken to. At some point during the main quest line, you find him locked up and being experimented on in one of these vaults, and he's entered a simulation. And there's multiple ways to get him out of that simulation, but that's all very fascinating. It has a very cynical, twisted sense of humor about it all, and you can be quite sadistic within the simulation, which is just so well contrasted with this, kind of utopia that they think they're living in. Stuff like that really makes Fallout stand out, and, it ingrains itself into your brain. That's what makes Fallout 3 so special, if you ask me. It's those little pockets of moments, or just coming across a little village that you think there's nothing really that weird about it. You get invited for dinner, and then you find out that actually this whole family, including the children, are all eating other people. Fallout used to be grim, it used to be dark, mixed with the dark realities of the post-apocalyptic world. Nowadays, Fallout under Bethesda has become a kind of theme park ride, as I've suggested in my other videos. But before, you would find these pockets of brilliance and just twisted shit. And maybe I'm just mad, but I love that. And I think that's what made Fallout so special. And that's what made Fallout 3 stand out from the rest of the games. Now, when you look at this beautiful countryside, Fallout is the complete opposite of all of this lush greenery and beauty that we can find in our own world. Yet there is one place like this, and of course I'm referring to the Oasis. Now, the Oasis is a very interesting location because it has great callbacks to previous old Fallout games with Harold, and you can decide in many different ways what to do with him. If you want to kill him, help him end his life, spread his seed, yummy, across the wasteland, or just simply by, keeping the people safe, his little cult following that he's got there. So it has nice references to the older games as well. Some crazy stuff you can find, like a whole town destroyed by giant fire ants, and then you find the Mechanist fighting with the leader of the giant ants. Now, Bethesda, used to have creative ideas, but I feel like now, Even just looking back at Fallout 4, they rehashed the same ideas with the Mechanist and the DLC and all that kind of stuff. Like, they've lost the ability to create meaningful storytelling and fiction. And like I said, it all feeds back so well with Fallout 3 because of the karma system. Everything that you do has interaction with the world and the people around you. If you get enough negative karma, people will come and find you and take you out. And like I said, it reflects that journey of identity and wrestling with your own slave morality, something that Nietzsche talked about. You know, basically becoming more and more evil, but perhaps in order to do the right things. And, you know, the game reflects those darker moral choices. You know, of course it has the obvious ones like Megaton being blown up, which is rather simple, black and white, good or evil, but it does have much more nuanced quest lines like that of Harold, where you do have to weigh up the pros and cons of that situation and decide what is actually best. You know, what is the moral thing to do? And that's what makes Fallout 3 still such a brilliant game. It's not about the lackluster gunplay, which is terrible, but it's the solid writing and storytelling of that world that makes Fallout 3 such a good game. And that's why I think Fallout 3 is still worth experiencing and enjoying even in 2026 and beyond. Now, Fallout is about the light side and the dark side most of the time. You know, the morality decisions can definitely be just simplified into black and white a lot of the time, but there are moments of it having a great balance of nuance. And I think the DLC does a good job of this to some degree. The pit actually is fantastic with its ambience. It just fails in its gameplay design, where it gives you, you know, too much access to these weapons and overpowered stuff early on, and the end decision being very simplistic. Point Lookout, again, is a master of, you know, just world building and exploration. But honestly, the moral decisions in Fallout 3, some of them just hit close to home, like what you do with your vault that you can go back to. And I might just be a crazy unk reflecting on an old game, feeling nostalgic because I'm back home for a little bit. But I do think that this game has something special. And perhaps this isn't the video you expected. You wanted me to go deep into the gameplay choices, but that's been done to death. This game, the reason it stands the test of time, the reason we're finally getting a Fallout TV show, and so many people will be going back to play the older games. And even if Bethesda doesn't care, you know, I just want to show that the Fallout community does still care. There's a reason why we love these games. The balance of humor just within the first act, like I said, in the vault with tunnel snakes and the stupid goat exam and all of this kind of stuff. I just think Fallout has such a unique identity, and this is when Bethesda managed to capture that and bring it into the 3D gaming space. And it also just did a good job of giving you so much variation. You never got bored playing Fallout 3, at least I never got bored playing this game. I'm still enjoying it to this day because of the amount of weapon choices that you can have. It's not like a modern RPG where you can build your character in so many different ways and you can go through this game completely different. It's more so about the personal choices that you make, the massive amount of enemies that you can encounter, the massive amount of different weapons you can choose from. The VAT system was great back then when it just stopped and slowed everything down completely. You know, I think it just blended the old school Fallout with the new wave that was coming before it got too insane. Now, this is, you know, kind of an updated Fallout 3 review for the year 2026, because that's when most people will be playing it. But I truly do hope you enjoy it. Subscribe, like if you're new. If you love deep analysis like this, that analyze games on a deeper fundamental level, philosophical videos, game reviews, you're in the right place. Do subscribe, become a wise one. You know, this year, we can truly make a difference together as a community. And having you guys as an audience now truly does mean the world to me. It's crazy that I can do this now. Having people watch my videos and enjoy it really does mean a lot to me. And that's something I never thought that would happen. So thank you so much. Now, if you do enjoy
these games, but like I said, it's difficult to get them working now because they're so old. Well, thanks to today's sponsor, Xmod, you can get these games up and running beautifully and tweaking it, making it much more of a modern experience thanks to trainers and mods with Xmod.
Xmod is a platform that unlocks thousands of free cheats, mods, and trainers for your favorite single-player PC games. Now, I've always felt that games are like a canvas, and mods are the paintbrush. They basically allow you to create your own unique experience, and that's why I love modding so much. Now, the main features of Xmod is it supports over 5,000 PC games, from massive AAA games to smaller indie titles. It works well with popular games like The Witcher 3, Red Dead Redemption 2, Cyberpunk 2077, or Skyrim or Fallout, you name it, it has you covered. With regular updates, it stays compatible with brand new games releasing day one. So Xmod is the best modding tool for anyone out there. Now, the cool thing about Xmod is you get day one access to trainers for the latest games. You just open up the app and it instantly shows you what you've got installed and all the available mods for that game. It's simple, it's well designed, and it even has a Discord community to help you out if you need it, and that's a huge benefit. So mostly I play Fallout, and this is the game I mod the most, so at times I just need quick access to toggle on these, helpful little mods, and they give me a big boost, because sometimes Fallout can be a bit grindy, but not anymore, because now you can change things like unlimited bottle caps, which allows you to get higher gear. You can get unlimited weight, which is a huge factor if you're playing on a modded hardcore playthrough. I also find it super useful for creating content as well. If you are a content creator, you can turn things off like no radioactivity. This allows you to, stay in, radioactive zones, get the shots that you want, or just for gameplay reasons. So what are you waiting for? Get modding today by using Xmod. Link below in the description. Make sure you go check it out and enjoy the games at their full potential with Xmod.
I do definitely think it's true that Bethesda used to care more about crafting unique, interesting locations. This all kind of became apparent with Fallout 4, where a lot of the locations were just filled with generic enemies. You would go in there, take out the enemies, grab some loot, and that would be it. With Fallout 3, places like the Dunwich buildings, in contrast to the Dunwich burrows or whatever it's called in Fallout 4, is completely different. It had such a haunting atmosphere. It had great audio logs that you would pick up along the way that would tell you this amazing story. And, you just don't get that in newer Bethesda stuff, in new Fallout games. And each location, not every single one, was something quite unique. And it gave you options, like I said, to find your identity. What are you willing to do to achieve your goals? Are you willing to shed that, mask of morality that you were taught in the vaults? A kind of meritocracy of everyone pulling their part, everyone doing, the greater good based on your, academic levels, your skills, and all this kind of stuff. It became about, what's better for the wasteland, or, how much you actually care about saving your dad. And Bethesda has always failed at that, truly captivating you into following the main quest line, and then you get distracted with the open world. Fallout 4 was even worse. I would say Fallout 3 did a better job because in some ways the dad, who was played by Qui-Gon, what's his name? I can't remember, but he did such a better job of compelling me. I don't give a shit about my stupid baby that I've just seen in a cutscene in Fallout 4, but I feel like the third game did a much better job of making you care about finding your dad, getting to the answers, especially on your first playthrough. This was very compelling to me, and I remember digging for information to find him, and I loved piecing that, quest line together. So for new people who have never played Fallout 3, it's crazy that some of you can get to experience this for the first time. And I've tried to talk about some of the things that made this game great without going into heavy spoilers about the outcomes. I also think visually Fallout 3 was more interesting. There's a reason I go back and mod the game a lot to replicate it, and I'm sure some of it is nostalgia, but I think the art style in Fallout 3 is so much better compared to Fallout 4. And I think they did actually change the art director at some point during that process. But, just the creature design of the mole rats and all this kind of stuff had such more weight to them, much more of a unique design instead of this generic kind of, radiated look that everything has today. And I wish Bethesda would go back to that, that art style of New Vegas and Fallout 3. But there's just so many cool things within this game to find. It's still crazy to me that when you enter Rivet City, you get, this quest where you have to find this runaway synth. And that basically does a much better job of, this idea, this like throwaway idea in the Fallout universe that, a machine can replicate consciousness or pretend to replicate consciousness. And, you have to track him down and decide what to do with him. Again, it gives you a moral choice in what you think is the right thing to do. And Fallout 4 built their whole goddamn main questline on this one idea, which is crazy to me, especially as it does it without any nuance compared to other fiction like Blade Runner or anything like that. And Fallout 3 just handled it so much better with one simple quest. This is my point. A lot of people like to dog on Fallout 3, saying it's a very simple RPG. And yes, that might be true with some of the RPG gameplay, but it still has things like karma, the world still reacts to you, and just the overall quality of writing and varied locations that you come across. That's, to me, why Fallout 3 is such a masterpiece, and it will always stand the test of time in my eyes. So I think that's why a lot of the Fallout community still love it, and why some are kind of not sure about it, because that was kind of the start of the dilution of Fallout. And the reason I bring up Nietzsche's slave morality, and the reason why I think it fits so well with the identity of Fallout 3, just with everything that you do, the places that you discover, the choices that it gives you, it reflects on you a lot more than the other games, in my opinion, where it's more about the greater good, or, the faction, the ideology, instead of you, the identity. That's why Fallout 3 is special to me, because Nietzsche talked about this idea that, most people follow this slave morality. They limit their potential, they limit who they are, and they kind of pretend to a degree that they have, these qualities in them, but almost it's just out of fear of the reaction you will get from society. And in a world like Fallout, where there isn't laws and regulations, where you can release, your shadow and, use that to your advantage in some ways, that's what's so interesting. It's how, the choices you make reflect different outcomes within the game and the quest lines, and that can be applied to your own world. And I do try and recommend that when you do play a game that gives you these questions, truly reflect on yourself and, see how it changes your psychology and what it tells you about yourself, because you might be surprised. And that's, to me, what Fallout 3 does so well, and a lot of people don't pick up on that theme, and they just see it as, a dark, moody game. But the reason why it is so dark is because some of the things the game asks you to do, like capture children and sell them for slave labor, if you get immersed in that experience, it's truly terrifying. And you don't see many of those dark themes like you do in the original Fallout games 1 and 2, but Fallout 3 does play with those ideas. To me, that's great, and we need more of that.
So, in summary, I do think Fallout 3 is worth playing in 2026 and beyond. And I still do think that Fallout 3 is probably one of the best Fallout creations we're ever going to get, sadly. And, it's not going to get better from here, I don't think. Obviously, Fallout New Vegas does a lot more with the factions, and it goes deeper into the ideologies and philosophy of each faction. And I did a full breakdown of all the different ideologies and philosophies of Fallout if you are interested, because I'm a madman. But Fallout 3, like I said, what really sticks with me is it's more about the individual characters that you come across, the pockets of gold that you find in Fallout 3, and that idea that goes so well with the themes of Fallout 3, self-discovery, self-actualization, identity, sacrifice, and, you know, some moral choices that the other games just didn't get as well. Now, the writing, of course, you could say is not brilliant, and I would agree, it's still not amazing. But for a video game, it's pretty goddamn good for the most part. But some of the ending for quest lines just feel like they kind of gave up. Like they didn't think of an intelligent way to, you know, it make any sense. Like you can just convince someone to, you know, like give up their whole way of life and stuff like that, which is kind of stupid. But that's kind of the charm of these games. And yeah, just a reflection on where Bethesda is heading now after Starfield, what they've done with Fallout 4. You know, I do really care about these games because I just feel like it made me reflect a lot on who I was and who I wanted to be. Even though it's just a game, you know, there's not many games that make you question moral choices in such an interesting world with so many different conflicting ideas. And of course, some people just enjoy it for blowing up shit, and it's pretty good for that. You know, I still think the combat is satisfying in a clunky kind of way. Like I said, gameplay-wise, you know, they could have done more like the older Fallout games where you have to manage your radiation and all this kind of stuff. Like, they definitely streamlined it and made it more simple. But Fallout 3 still stands the test of time for me, personally, just for all of those reasons that I stated. And I do think that if you haven't played this game or you haven't played it in a long time, perhaps go back to it, dig a little bit deeper, and you might find something worth experiencing. And I just wanted to talk about Fallout 3 today, as we're gonna get a lot of people going back to the Fallout games. And I think the show reflects a lot of the themes that Fallout 3 deals with. And I am excited to see what happens with New Vegas, but I do think Fallout 3 deserves some love as well. Finding places like Paradise Falls, Little Lamplight, and some of the quite twisted stuff that you can decide to do, or, you know, the opposite, and sacrificing, you know, some things for the greater good. A lot of games don't deal with that much of adult themes anymore, sadly. You know, of course, a few games have pulled it off, like Baldur's Gate 3 and stuff like that, but it's becoming increasingly rare, and we need stories to push the envelope, to push the boundaries, not just to reflect on modern day times. This is how creativity actually, you know, spreads ideas, and it becomes a dialectic, and that's important to me. And maybe I look too deeply into things, but those are the reasons I love Fallout 3 and why I think you should still play Fallout 3 in 2026 and beyond. And yeah, why Fallout 3 stands the test of time. Thank you so much for watching, my wise ones. It really does mean a lot that I can just ramble, and now I do have an audience that will still watch it. I can't say to what degree, but you know, we're doing pretty good now on the channel, and it really does mean a lot, and your support does mean a lot to me. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.